Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Keith Crumwitty, Dean of Architecture at California College of the Arts. Thanks for joining us tonight for the lecture Light's Highest Purpose by Ben Davis. This is the third event in our spring lecture series. Please note that if you want to, you can enable closed captioning at the bottom of your Zoom window with the live transcript button. At CCA, we do a land acknowledgement as understanding it to be a transformative act meant to confront our place on native lands and to build mindfulness of our present participation in colonial legacies. California College of the Arts campuses are located in Huichin and Yelamu, also known as Oakland and San Francisco, respectively, on the unceded territories of the Chochenyo and Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who've continuously lived upon this land since time immemorial. We recognize the historic discrimination and violence inflicted upon Indigenous peoples in California and the Americas, including their forced removal from ancestral lands and the deliberate and systematic destruction of their communities and culture. CCA honors Indigenous peoples past, present, and future here and around the world, and we wish to pay respect to local elders, including those of the lands from which you're joining us virtually today. If you'd like to learn more about CCA architecture, please visit scaffold.architecture.cca.edu, where you can find our public programs calendar, watch videos of past events, and read stories by and about our students, faculty, and alumni. And now it's my pleasure to pass the mic to Amy Campos, Professor and Chair of the Interior Design Program here at CCA, who will introduce our speaker.
Thanks, Keith, and welcome, Ben. We're excited to have you here today. Through the generous funding from the Dongia Foundation, Margot Mievska and I have been developing lighting design curriculum within the interior design program and connecting the multidisciplinary nature of light as a design medium across the various practices at the college. We're working to develop a lighting lab with new technologies and equipment, building an online anthology of resources to share with our academic communities, and teaching a new interdisciplinary course this semester on light and social dynamics. From the very beginning of our work for the grant, Ben Davis's contributions have provided an inspiring set of projects, approaches, and values that we've returned to again and again. The most common word I've seen to describe Ben and his methodology is audacious, a word that evokes boldness and grandiosity almost to the point of disbelief. In studying his work and approach, this is an apt description. We're all now used to the fabulous spectacle of the Bay Bridge lights, but to hear the story of how this came to be, how the Bay Bridge barely held space in the public consciousness next to its star sibling, the Golden Gate Bridge, before those lights went up, it's almost unbelievable that he was able to make the world's largest LED light sculpture materialize. Ben's history of realizing large-scale public works is truly impressive in the context of the many regulatory bodies, invested communities, massive budgets that all needed convincing and managing to get to the audacious outcomes Ben does. It would be considered a huge life's achievement to realize just the Bay Bridge Lights project, but this is one of the many, many public works Ben has executed, including work as the manager of public information for the Boston Harbor Cleanup Project, founding the creative agency Words, Pictures, Ideas, and winning 2 Webby Awards, developing the names and visual identities of the Bay Bridge seismic safety projects, the Trans-Bay Transit Center, and the Presidio Parkway. And through his leadership of his company Illuminate, he's contributed numerous public works like the seasonal light displays at the Conservatory of Flowers, the immersive installation Grace Light at Grace Cathedral, and helping bring live performance back to the Spreckles Theater outside of the de Young Museum in San Francisco. Illuminate's 10 principles offer guidance for collaborative practice, including my favorite directives: inspire generous collaboration, take the long view, take worthy risks. Ben provides us with a model and a game plan for being bold and contributing meaningfully. Thanks for being here, Ben, and thank you for your work. I'll pass it to you to begin your lecture now.
Very, very, very kind and gracious introduction. And it makes me feel humble and giggle to hear someone talk about my methodology and my work and my practice, because really I'm just out there ravaging out in the world trying to make shit happen and catching whiffs and visions and sort of sensing opportunity. But it is, really nice. And I give you credit, Amy, because I sent my bio in and pretty much talked about, I get ideas by going out on my bike and getting stoned. and you've transformed it into my deeper work with architecture and your research and Levy Awards and working on big mega projects. So you outed me. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be here with all of you. I look forward to some point soon getting a chance to see each other in person still. I do miss that, although this is super convenient because I am in Baja, California. Well, my brain and my heart and my soul, I think, are traveling around San Francisco. I've been on Zoom calls all day working on visions for the city. My body's here in the surf, in the sun. I'm having a nice time. Let me just go back and sort of talk about my strange background and really all the flaws and imperfections that sort of define who I am, that turned out to be probably the best parts about me, but scared me my whole life. You know, I grew up in a scruffy neighborhood in Boston, and that was when Boston had been about four decades of urban decay. And the neighborhood that I lived in, the South End, was full of boarded up row houses and junkies in the alleys and prostitutes on the corners. And it was just a crazy kind of a free range third kid growing up existence. I went to Boston public schools my whole life. My one neighborhood in Boston was a very melting pot neighborhood. My friends were sort of from all over the place. But Boston is, for the most part, extremely balkanized neighborhood, or at least it was when I was growing up. And so my first year of high school was the first year of the desegregation of the Boston public school system. And for those who know your history a little bit, you know, Boston got revealed for the truly sort of ugly place that it was from a racial perspective. Years of sort of caste system and sort of violence against one wave of immigration against the next. And those groups fighting for the crumbs, doing violence and injustice upon each other, really exploded into this moment of extreme violence as Boston worked to try and do the right thing and desegregate the school system. And so it was challenging. It was violent. It was a strange upbringing. And when I graduated from high school in 1978, I was 17 years old. I hitchhiked across country with my best friend, Stafford Gregoire, who was Black by the calculus of race in America, but sort of Obama complected, erudite African father, sort of progressive white mom, cool dude, very smart guy. And I realized now he was sort of my first intellectual relationship. We would do things that other people didn't do, like read and talk about things and watch movies. And he was a cool guy. He's still a good friend. But if you ever want to understand white privilege, just hitchhike with the Black dude across the country sometime. It was a slow and interesting trip. And when we got to Eureka, California, we really just got stuck. We couldn't get a ride, and we were due to be in San Francisco at a certain date to be with his uncle, who we didn't really know. We had a map in the old school, and we ended up getting out of the Greyhound station at the Transbay Center and walking to Market Street. And needed to make our way up to this area, like 14th near the Castro. And even in 1978, we had heard a little bit about this homosexual thing happening in San Francisco, but it wasn't like now where you just had information flowing all the time. It was sort of siloed information, and you heard rumors of places. And when we got to Market Street, it was mayhem. There were guys all over the place, naked, having sex, hooting, hollering at us, our little, teeny bopper selves walking up the street. And it was shocking and kind of beautiful and open at the same time. And as we walked further up to the Castro, it got even more intense. What we didn't realize, of course, it was the Pride Parade in 1978, the same year that Harvey Milk had taken office as the first openly elected gay official, actually 6 months before he was assassinated. And it was this beautiful blossoming of this place. And I realized that the world was bigger than my neighborhood. And I ended up getting back across country to Boston, deciding I really didn't want to be a blue collar FedEx worker or work in a sub shop. So I probably should find some way to get into college and go to school and avoid that travesty. So I ended up coming back up to California at a young age. I went to Sacramento City College for a little while, finally got some decent grades. It was a different era. I snuck into Cal Berkeley, lapsed back into being a bad student, and found myself graduating in 1984, walking across the stage of the Greek Theater with a degree that I didn't really care about in political science. Just they kicked me out of school because I didn't have enough credits. And remember that moment, I was going from being a hardworking student to a busboy with a college degree, again, with no plan. But this much I knew. When I went to the job fair and saw the DuPont and the Dow Chemical and the Bank of America and the Visa and all the companies there that, you know, were looking to hire somebody, not me in 1984, I just would talk to them and eventually figured out you had to sit at a cubicle for 50 weeks of the year. And I just couldn't stand the idea of doing that. So I was a bike messenger. I was a server, a waiter for a long time. I love the titles of my first careers, messenger and server, because I feel like I'm still doing the same thing now. But I realized even then, like I was starting to get a little older, 24, 25 years old. Shit, I'm looking at the other waiter down at the end of the bar who's doing lines of cocaine at age 40. And I said, I don't want to be that guy. So I ended up cracking the newspaper one day. And this is when I had newspapers. And on page 6, in the Sacramento Bee, there was this headline that said, Boston Harbor cleanup project set to begin. I was like, Boston Harbor cleanup project. Those 4 words, you know, they just kind of confounded me. Like, you could clean up Boston Harbor. I said, if I'm going to have to sit in a cubicle for 50 weeks a year, let me see if I can sit and try and do something that would be interesting and I would care about. And I went back and I finagled an internship fetching copies and left 8 years later as the manager of public information on a $4 billion environmental cleanup project, which was really, in this moment, as we're on this call, is doing its work in the world still. The Boston Harbor has been radically transformed. The project was delivered on time, under budget, or on budget. And it was astounding and beautiful to see how well people could work together to accomplish audacious and truly impossible things. And I sort of see God in the infrastructure as a result of that. So much goodness and energy coming together in these things that we often take for granted, but that unite us. And that we need to work on to reach across divides, because they're important for our lives. But I didn't want. Then I would see the 50-year-old guy drinking the gin of the bottom drawer, the vodka, whatever the booze they could drink without stinking too much. And I just said, I don't want to really be a bureaucrat my whole life. And an opportunity came to move to San Francisco, which I did in 1994. Took a job, got fired from that job, and then in a strange moment, just decided I would do what I'm not qualified to do, which is open a small design shop. A one-person shop with me just trying to create a quality of life business. My daughter was 1 year old at the time. And I got a $300 a month office in the Ferry Building, which the Embarcadero had just come down in front of. It's pretty much a ramshackle old structure. And, just hung out a shingle and started working on some environmental projects and various projects. I was not a very good designer, but I was a good mimic. But every time a mega project would sort of come near me, I would lose my mind and lavish myself on it and care deeply about it. And ended up, the company called Words, Pictures, Ideas ended up working on a lot. We named and branded over $15 billion of civic investment projects. Everything from the retrofit of the Ferry Building, not the retrofit, but the rehabilitation of it into the place that you know now. And the whole Embarcadero, and as Amy was saying, some other big projects. But one of those projects was the Bay Bridge Seismic Safety Project, which at the time was the largest public works project in California's history. And I worked for 7 years in that project. I have a deep love of it. In 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake partially toppled the east span of the Bay Bridge. You might remember that image in your mind of the bridge partially collapsed after the earthquake. And a long and heroic and challenging effort set into motion to make the bridge seismically safe. And that included ultimately replacing the entire east span with the white span and tower that you see there now. And on the western span, it included replacing 1 million bolts with rivets and putting dampers in the west approach as you come into San Francisco, kind of open heart surgery in the middle of San Francisco. Really challenging work that was never really valued. And I knew the people who were giving their lives to it and cared about it deeply. And then one day when the Bay Bridge was coming up on its 75th anniversary, I was thinking one morning, actually part of my methodology and my practice is to get on my bicycle early in the morning sometimes, and I like to bike over to the Ferry Building to enjoy the farmer's market, get a little food. And I got there very early, got my cup of coffee, and sat at the end of the building and was just looking up the 1.8 miles of the western span of the Bay Bridge, knowing its history, knowing that when it opened in 1936, there were 4 days of regional celebration. It was a testament to the American fortitude and ingenuity coming through the throes of the Great Depression. That there were, inserts in the paper and their commissioned poems and symphonies and lighting displays. And then 6 months later, the symmetrically perfect sister, the Golden Gate Bridge, opens to the north, and the world's attention drifts, and the Bay Bridge falls into, for 7 decades, it's second busiest bridge in America, Cinderella roll. And as I was sitting there, just looking at the bridge, thinking about its history, and the sun was coming up dancing through the cables, it just suddenly hit me that as I was asking, how can you let the bridge shine in the region's consciousness again? It could be not just a bridge, but a canvas of light. Now, I have no business thinking about such things. It was truly a visitation, and I could feel it change my body temperature. I can still feel it a little bit even now, all these years later. And I sat there for many minutes thinking about it, sipping my coffee, then stood up and crumpled my cup and said, oh, that's a crazy idea, and started to walk away. And I stopped myself because I'd had a revelation for me a few months earlier while I was taking a run out in Stinson Beach that, I was feeling a little disassociated from life. I was enjoying successes, but I just didn't feel connected to people very well, or even to myself. And I realized that I had been, that every decision I was making was coming from one or two places. It was either coming from love or coming from fear. And I was in a moment of being very truthful myself. And the truth was I was making most decisions from a place of fear. They were slightly in my favor. They were less concerned with the outcome for others. And I just wanted to change that equation. So I made the commitment that anytime I could gain consciousness around an idea, whether it was full of fear, I would make it from a place of love, whether it was a big idea or a small idea. And all that memory came thundering back to me as I crumbled up that coffee cup. And I said, that's fear speaking. It's not that it's a crazy idea, it's that you're afraid of being judged crazy for having it. You're afraid of what it would actually take to try and do it. The truth is, it's a beautiful idea. You can feel it in your body. And you're probably uniquely suited of anyone, given your background right now and the trust you have from the bureaucrats to at least give it a try. And so I literally, instead of walking to the trash can, I just walked toward the bridge, sort of in the name and spirit of love. And, somewhat divinely, 2.5 years later, with a lot of work and a huge community coming together, and finding the artist and connecting with the artist Leo Villarreal, and the world opened up and the Bay Lights manifested less than 2.5 years later. And we had high hopes for what that project could be, but the truth is that it vastly exceeded them. It wasn't just letting people see the bridge, it was changing the energy of the city. It was a much more powerful work than I could have even imagined. So powerful was it that I realized, wow, for all my 20 years of creating websites and white papers and curriculums and everything to help people understand and connect to infrastructure, this one bold gesture has brought people into resonance with their built environment and the world around them much more than anything else I can do. This is the higher calling. So I ended up going from job to career to calling, doing another job that I was not qualified to do, immensely unqualified to do, which is run an arts nonprofit. So I shut down a 20-year business, and now I'm the founder and I guess chief visionary officer, CEO, whatever they want to call me, of Illuminate. Everyone here, is everyone following me so far? Let me just check in for a second, catch a breath. Thanks, everybody. I knew there was potential to do interesting work. I could feel the love, the joy, the commitment, the passion. I could feel the truth that when you give yourself to a transformational project, you are transformed by it as part of the bargain. And I knew there was an opportunity to do more. I didn't quite know what it was going to be yet. But meanwhile, suddenly the Bay Lights were such an international success that invitations started to pour in from around the world. Would you consider lighting this bridge in Montreal, or the tallest residential tower in Chicago, or some ungodly budgeted project in Dubai, or some crazy stupid mall in Singapore? And all of it sounded at first really cool and sexy and maybe well paying and kind of prestigious, and first class flights and 5-star hotels, and I just sort of shook that spell off pretty quickly and said, dude, that's not why you repurposed your whole life. That's not why you gave up probably your safe retirement. You need to be in service, and you need to take this opportunity that you've created for yourself seriously. And it just hit me that I didn't want to be the guy in the plane. I didn't even want to be on planes, given where we are in the climate and everything else. So we just decided to say no to everything that was not in San Francisco and just stay in one place and go deep and try and build community. And instead of sprinkle lights in places we didn't know, really try and understand the place that we are and create connections, create through lines that pull us through the history and into the present moment, and sort of help light a path forward as a way to create not just a piece of art or expression, but a collection of expressions that start to form a body of work in a place that have the potential, at least, to start to create an energetic shift in the place that you live. The model I think of sometimes with great humility, because I'm not trying to make an association between this person and myself or our work, but I draw inspiration from Gaudi in Barcelona, from anyone who's been to Barcelona, where you can go and see the tile on the street, or the individual home, or the apartment complex, or the Park Arguel, or the Sagrada Familia. And you can suddenly, there's this concentration of work that is more powerful for it being concentrated in one place, and your ability to understand and experience it that way. So we stayed put in San Francisco, and we, the other thing we said no to as part of this process was corporate funding. I know it sounds strange, but when we first started the Bay Lights, there was this three impossibilities. There was the impossibility of permission. There was no way to have permission. It's an interstate freeway over live traffic and water. It's got jurisdiction of Homeland Security, the United States Coast Guard, Fish and Wildlife, BCDC, Caltrans, MTC, Bay Area Toll Authority, and California Highway Patrol, and others. I mean, it's a crazy morass of permissions. But people want to be inspired. People want to be part of bigger something than themselves. And the vision for it was beautiful. And we found a way to say, I said to the state, look, if you can find a way to give us permission, we will try and find a way to make it possible, because the next impossibility was just the technology. There was no technology. We know how to make pixels go into a small space. We don't have occasion to spread them out over 1.8 miles, 500 feet in the sky above water and traffic. But if you can figure out how to give us permissions and we can make it possible, then I believe we will find the funds, and I won't ask the state or the government for money, because I don't want to have that discussion. I believe we can handle this in a different way. So the state started doing their thing, and we got serious around permissions. We had a technical team, that was committed to solving this riddle, including working with Leo, but with lots of august figures coming in, helping us out. And then we were starting to go down the path of corporate sponsorship and arranging these meetings. And I would go to these meetings, and it would be like, we love it, but we would like to put the 4 rings of our logo for our car company in the tower. I'm like, no, there's not going to be any logos on the bridge, you guys. I don't know if we could, but I don't, no, we can't do that. And then our customers hit the key rings, and when they hit their key rings, something magical happens. Like, no, that doesn't feel right. You can't touch the art. You guys can't touch the art. Well, like the Grey Goose Vodka Company, we respect it. We don't want to touch the art. Just occasionally some gray geese will fly across. Like, you guys, stop it. You're killing me. I don't want to be in these meetings. Don't even take me to these meetings. They can smell my hatred, my contempt for this corporate message. And I realized that we were doing pretty well in the culture of generosity, but I just I couldn't stand the economy of reciprocity. And every time you start to get to the chief marketing officer, there was always this conversation about the clawback, what people would get for their money. And it came down to this point where, where I pulled myself out of that process, but I was still kind of in charge of things. And everyone said, okay, we got it. We got the deal. We're all set. All you need to come, and we're going to present it to you. And there was 8 people on the table, kind of 4 people from my side and 4 people from the corporate side, marketing side. And it was sort of, we understand it. We get that the art is sacrosanct. I got the chief marketing officer blowing smoke. We respect what you were doing. We have a check here for $3 million that I'm ready to sign. And all we need to do from you is we just want one thing, which is title naming rights. I had committed that I wasn't going to say anything in this meeting. So I waited about 15 or 20 seconds, which is an eternity in a meeting like that. And everyone's quiet, everyone's looking at you. And I finally said, you mean as in the Audi Bay Lights? And they said, yeah. I said, that's just never gonna happen. I'm sorry, Audi, we need your money. I don't know what to say, but even if we could put an ad on the side of the bridge, we shouldn't. This is not about having a car commercial on the side of the bridge. This work has to belong to everybody. Audi, we'll put you at the bottom of an ad, call it powered by Audi, the bottom third, I don't care. Well, I'm okay, we need the money, we had no play other than you guys really. But they walked and my team was devastated. And I just said, look, we're gonna live or die with integrity of this project. We're not gonna take it this far and compromise that way. And the world was very generous. And within a week, a philanthropist who had said no to us twice called us back and said, I've been thinking about it. And he ended up making a $3.5 million matching gift, and we matched against that. And the Bay Lights came live with pure integrity. And thank goodness, thank goodness. And we've embraced that now as an ethos, and we've encountered this conversation many times. And we're at the point now where I just don't accept sponsorship on our projects. We don't. We accept generosity. We say thank you. We say thank you all the time. We feel the gratitude. We'll tell the story of your help. But no, and I don't really want to show logos or any of that stuff, even on websites. I'll do some of that stuff. I'll give it a little bit for generosity, but it feels good to just be creating from a sense of purity, a sense of purpose, a sense that that Illuminate's mission is exactly what we say. Illuminate rallies large groups of people together to create impossible works of public art that through awe free humanity's better nature. I'm gonna take another breath here for just a second and check in to see if people are still with me on this little bit of storytelling. Doing all right? Let me share with you something that we just created last week, or maybe it's a week and a half ago now. One of my board members is an amazing dude named Matt Mullenweg. He is actually gave the original gift at age 27 that got us moving on the Bay Lights, and he gave a closing gift, a 7-figure gift. He's an extraordinary dude, very smart, very Sphinx-like, great listener. He also co-founded WordPress. 1 in 3 websites in the world is on the WordPress platform. So it gives you a sense of his sort of sweep of his understanding of the world. And he was saying, I'm having a hard time tracking the projects. You're talking about a lot of projects here. Can you just create like a dashboard or something, a spreadsheet, and color code them, which ones are live, and just put them all together in one place so we can see them? I'm like, oh, Matt, if I do that, people are going to see the crazy. They're going to see the crazy. We say no to everything place else, but I bike around San Francisco all day long, and my head is full of understandings of the way the city could be interesting and projects all over the place. And of course, Matt's so great. He goes, I'm kind of the open source guy. I think you should make it available to everybody. I'm like, ooh, that's tempting. So I started putting in a spreadsheet, but I just can't think in spreadsheets. And then ended up juicing this project. I'm not very technical at all, but I ended up just trying to figure out like how I could do this spatially. So are you guys seeing the Earth? Wave at yourself, way down there. We created this little map, or this little Google Earth interface that we call the City of Awe. Because I've always thought of San Francisco potentially as the City of Awe. If we could just, it's so beautiful in so many ways. So this is the breadth of Illuminate's work as you look at San Francisco. The black projects are completed. The red projects I would call kind of currently are spinning. Gray projects are visions yet to happen, although they're all have the possibility. It's very cool. And then it's fun because you can zoom around the city. For instance, we can go see the Bay Lights, since we've talked about those a bit, probably a bit too much. Zoom in, you can see our project. Let's see, let's find a good one. Let's go to Photosynthesis in Golden Gate Park. And I don't know if you guys are seeing, it's probably going to take a moment for the Google to refresh, but you can see the images. Can you see the images in my top corner here? Many of you see that? So this is a very fun way to explore the work. But also for me, it's been really transformative and powerful because I no longer have to hold these things all together at once or try and recreate maps in my head or understand and prioritize. It's really cool to have it all together in one spot. That should change. There we go, Grace Light. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Grace Light installation in Grace Cathedral. Truly amazing. I'll show a couple of images of that in just a bit. This has been really, really interesting to see how a tool can help you think differently and understand the world a little differently. I'm super excited about it. You know, I will say that I was probably driven like a lot of people by, you know, a collection of insecurities and so forth. I've always was very intellectually insecure. I felt like all my friends were smarter than me. I still do. And people had the ability to learn languages and get PhDs. And I felt like my brain was just this chaotic place that the metaphor was, it was like this spider web that indiscriminate things would stick to. And I would scurry around and learn how to survive and stay alive. And anything big would just fly through it and rip a hole. And I would have to sort of mend it and keep going. But then I started to hear from people, you know, you're so good conceptually. You're so good conceptually, which I didn't believe, and I sort of refused for a long time. But then I realized I had to be conceptual just to survive. I don't have all the information. I've had to learn to see in between and to not have to know exactly how something can be done, but I can imagine that it can be done, and it doesn't stop me, the knowing or the not knowing. So it's been very interesting, and this expression of thought pulled together in this way has been really, it's going to make a difference in how I go about the next 5 or 10 years, I'm sure. I want to, how do I want to do this next? I want to take you on a little journey. First, I want everyone, I swear, this is it. What Illuminate really does is create high trust networks. We're taking little risks all the time. We're a little vulnerable. I think the strength of the organization is we're vulnerable. I don't have any power to punish anybody. I don't really have any power to reward anybody. I don't have a checkbook, a big fat checkbook. All I can do is inspire folks and really inspire the best of folks. So everyone, I know someone will break rank here, probably will survive, but do your best to just hold this thought in your mind for the next month or two. It may not take that long, we'll see. But I guarantee you, if you're in or around San Francisco, you're going to think about it a lot. Deal with everybody? Deal? We can do this? All right. So I'm going to show you the pitch deck I just sent. Now, when I was talking to Amy just before we got online, I'm like, you know, Amy, what would you like me to talk about? She goes, you know, talk about how you go through all this process to get these things done, and all in these bureaucracies and all of this heavy lifting. Part of it is, you know, I've been doing what I've been doing for a while, I guess, and I have I have a reputation of sort of being out there. People know I'm a rational player. People know I'm not going to burn them. I really, the reputation as someone you can trust really matters. And so I've been building that over time in San Francisco. It makes more things possible. It makes it easier to connect with people or certainly get a meeting. And also just knowing more people that you can shortcut the system, and then it's just being kind of clever and getting people to go along with the journey where the system is designed to say no, but the people inside the system actually have the power, if they get creative, to overthrow the system and find a way for it to say yes. So, but a lot of it has to do with storytelling. I rejected this at first. I thought, I'm not going to tell stories. That's a lame way to do anything. I'm information driven. And then I realized the whole way that the Bay Lights came around was really this Cinderella story around this bridge, living in the shadow of the beautiful sister, and the whole routine. And those stories matter. So I've learned to move into story and storytelling a little bit more. And this is, let me see, share my screen for a second. Yeah. Are you guys seeing a picture of Sutro Tower? Yes. Let me just try and go full screen to see if that's going to work. If it doesn't work, I think that's what Control L. Is that any bigger or better for you guys, or worse?
The same.
Okay, then in that case, I'll just go back to that. All right, you guys can see this text. Basically, Sutro Tower is turning 50 in 18 months. Kind of exciting, kind of interesting, kind of strange. You know, Sutro Tower is this alien being that came up because the television reception in San Francisco was the worst in the country for any major city. And it got kind of snuck up in the darkness. And there's this gigantic, crazy three-legged, slightly Japanese tower on the hillside. It was you know, of course, people hated it. Many people hated it originally. Now it's quite beloved. It's just one of those strange structures. But this is the pitch and part of the storytelling. And this goes to the Sutro Tower Inc. board. Sutro Tower is privately owned piece of infrastructure. Very interesting. Four networks equally own it, and they meet, you know, with some regularity at a White Shield law firm downtown, the Sutro Tower Inc. group. So this is a presentation to pique their interest. San Francisco-based art nonprofit Illuminate is a master at transforming emotionally overlooked forms of architecture into beloved civic expressions. Our mission, we mentioned before. You know, this just dawned on me as something to write as I was putting this little pitch deck together. But this notion that we're taking these emotionally overlooked forms of architecture is really kind of interesting. I hadn't really thought of it before, but it is kind of what we do. We take this tertiary or somewhat forgotten structures, not always the case, or not fully explored, and we explore them in a slightly different way. Here we go. We bring together world-class multidisciplinary teams committed to delivering safe, elegant, and soulful expressions. I will say this, sometimes I'm referred to as an artist. I let people call me whatever they want. I do think I'm a conceptual artist, which I like to shorten to con artist. But it's the truth is that I can't paint, I can't draw, I can't sculpt. You know, I don't have even the best sense of composition. So I have to have help to make anything happen. It's like the axiom of Illuminate. You know, we create nothing on our own. So it's really humbling and empowering to know you need to surround yourself with amazing people if you want to have amazing things happen. Our work is steeped in local history, creating a through line from past to the present while lighting a path towards a brighter future. This is the photosynthesis on the Conservatory of Flowers. This is this building, you know, it came online 10 years after Darwin wrote Origin of the Species. It was actually a place of scientific exploration as we were trying to understand the nature of plants and genes. And it you know, it's a beautiful structure. It fell into sort of a different old-timey look and feel. It was suffering a bit, but you know, they painted white as a way to preserve the plants inside from the sun and the heat. And it always struck me as it could be a beautiful canvas. And we ended up putting in place with Red Park and Obscura Digital, a really beautiful, complicated, sophisticated analog expression with go-go projectors and just an amazing coming together. But what I didn't expect to happen was, first of all, instead of 5,000, 30,000 people showing up on the summer solstice for us to bring this into play on a Wednesday night at 9:15 in San Francisco. It seems impossible that anyone in the city would be out that late. It's still shining now, but it's changed the prospects of this facility, where even though it only shines at night, and the building's open in the daytime, membership has gone up 700%, visitations have gone up 400%, just because it's increased the building stature in the region's cultural consciousness. Very interesting to see how that can happen on this 140-year-old structure. This is a recent work in Golden Gate Park. This is the old Spreckles Temple of Music that is now the Golden Gate Bandshell. We've rechristened it that. We were confounded why there was no music in the music concourse most of the time. It sat silent for a century. And we ended up sitting there for a couple of years and finally cracking the code, ripping out the old stage, putting in a brand new stage that was curvilinear, beautifully designed, ADA accessible for the first time, had a stage extension in the front that let us get people closer to the performers, but also put an in-place theatrical lighting and world-class Myers sound system in, so that people could play music there again with greater ease. And we hosted 50 concerts there, live concerts there, as part of the Illuminate live music series since August this year, with 125 or so planned for next year, which I hope to see you guys out there for. On December 1st, we added the words "Lift Every Voice" to the top of the bandshell, which are very powerful and part of an installation actually called Monumental Reckoning at the other end of the music concourse that, if we have a chance, I may talk about in a bit. We do the deep work of building community, gaining permissions, and raising the money and framing meaning. So this is actually the pink triangle up on Twin Peaks. This is part of what I would call our COVID collection. When COVID hit, we sort of smashed down around almost exactly 2 years ago now. The first inclination was to go into a fetal tuck, right out the 8 weeks that we were going to be locked down. But there was some impulse and intuition that said, look, we're going into dark times here, and light's highest purpose is to shine in darkness. And so we just committed ourselves, even if we had to break the bank, go under, it didn't matter. We were gonna produce and create during that time. And I happened to be running up on Twin Peaks thinking about things and remembered my friend Patrick Carney, who did this installation for 25 years in canvas, the spot, and said, "Hey, Patrick, are you gonna be able to do that with volunteers this year?" And he confessed that he probably wouldn't. And I asked if he would be interested in doing it in light, if I could get a smaller, nimble team and come up with a program. He said yes. In less than 3 months, we created an acre of light on the side of the hill. An unbelievable act of coming together of community, risk-taking, and everything else, but a beautiful gesture that now I hope will become an annual tradition. We lit it in 2021, last year, not just for Pride weekend, but actually for all of Pride month, with a pink torch procession that started in Oakland and went to San Francisco, and Nancy Pelosi helped us light it, and it stayed illuminated for the whole month. So hopefully in the Bay Area in the future, it's Pride month, not by looking at the calendar, but just by looking at the skies. And then we request the privilege of presenting our concept for celebrating Sutro Tower's 50th birthday to the leadership of Sutro Tower Inc. at your earliest convenience. So that's a good pitch, don't you think? Aren't you intrigued? Someone give me a hell yes or no, not at all. Anything? I'm seeing about 3 people's heads at the top. That's all I can see. That's great. I've been thinking about Sutro Tower for a very long time. I bicycle all around the city. Sutro Tower can be seen from everywhere for a really good reason. It was designed to see us. It was solving the problem of television transmission, so it had to get as high as it possibly could, so it could have direct lines of sight to the entire Bay Area. So I think it may be one of the most visible pieces of built environment in all of California. I'm not sure, but sure seems like it is. And it's very cool and interesting to me. And I had been seeing actually, as I ran up underneath it almost every single day or biked underneath it, this illuminated inverted pink triangle coming down from the upper reaches. And at that time, I was a little more full of fear and trying to figure out how to work with the board. My board was beating me up for having too many ideas and needing to stay focused. And, I was trying to conform to them, which isn't really good for me. But I would tell the triangle to literally shut up, be quiet, stop talking to me. And it would show itself to me and I would tell it to be quiet. And then I went on Valentine's Day a few years ago now, maybe it's been 4 years, 5 years ago, to the DeYoung Museum and saw the Keith Haring show. I don't know if you guys remember that show, but it's awesome. It increased my appreciation for the beauty and the madness of that person. But as you're exiting the show on your way to the gift shop, there was this giant pink triangle painted to canvas, with sort of see no evil, hear no evil figures on it, that Keith Haring style. And the name of the piece was Silence Equals Death. And I just broke down, realizing that this is what I'd actually been seeing. And I've been telling it to be silent. And so I melted in front of it, as I am in the moment. And when you leave the Dion, you look right at the Sutro Tower. Just as you're leaving, walking over that Andy Goldsworthy crack, you can see the tower right ahead of you. And so I began pursuing that vision, and even got to the point where I had permission from Sutro Tower to, if we could figure out how to pay for it, make it safe, and get whatever path for community permission, they would give us access. And I started working on it, and I was working with a vendor. It didn't have, it was kind of a beautiful but clunky solution. It was heavy. And I also went and met with the neighbors, and the neighbors, there's about a half a dozen people there, which is enough people to kill any Illuminate project, who hate Sutro Tower epigenetically through generations, who had it come up and feel like it's been killing them for 50 years with radio frequency and lead paint and other unknown frequencies and vibrations. And they said to me, anything you do to beautify that tower would be like putting Christmas lights on Auschwitz, and we will fight you to the death. I'm like, oh shit, okay, let me rethink this a bit. Meanwhile, the way the world works, we ended up putting a big, even slightly bigger pink triangle. It's about 90 feet across the upper reaches of the top of Sutro Tower in the big equilateral triangle. And the triangle on Twin Peaks is, over 100 feet at the top, and narrows, sort of illusion. It's very long and narrow to give the illusion of an equilateral triangle from Market Street, but it's about 200 feet long. So it gave me the liberation to think about Sutro Tower differently. We'd already done that. And then another vision showed itself to me that I was starting to tell, okay, that's goofy. Shut up. I can't do that. I can't bring that out into the world. But it kept showing itself to me. And then it just sort of cracked on me that, oh, this is the thing that should happen. The Sutro Tower came live in 1973. Let me see if I can share my screen. People still with me? Okay, so this is the presentation I gave to the general manager of KPIX before he gave me permission to give him that pitch deck you saw. You seeing the Illuminate symbol on your screen? Okay. These are all just the things to get people proof of concept, excited. Okay, this guy knows what the fuck he's doing. Melt a little bit as we go through these processes. Beautiful little pieces we've done around San Francisco, our commitment. And then, again, the Monumental Reckoning piece, Lift Every Voice. Then we go back to 1973 and bad television reception. Streets of San Francisco. This guy's been the general manager for a long time. He's been in the television industry for a long time. And just the struggle of San Francisco to not be able to see it, and the reaction of building this gigantic tower that had its first transmission on July 4th, 1973, which is sort of an interesting, epic date in its own right. So again, our 50th anniversary is going to be July 4th, 2023, in about 18 months. And the vision I've been having is to have up until technological wonder of the day. It's kind of like having a giant Betamax in your bookshelf now, but it was the wonder of the time. Is to imagine in the upper reaches of the Sutro Tower, in honor of its 50th birthday, a 15-meter kinetic, wind-driven, reflective, orb-shaped sculpture, or really, if you think about it another way, a 50-foot disco ball on top of Twin Peaks, shining over San Francisco, bringing joy and happiness and festivities after a few hard years. And I'll just leave it at that for a second, because I still have this nervousness that this feels trite, even though I know the truth that it's going to be referred to the disco ball, but in reality, it's going to be a complex and beautiful wind-driven form that if you get close enough, you'll see. But it's hard to get close to it. And I'm okay for it to be colloquially known as a disco ball. I just don't want it to be dismissed, because what it's really doing is reinforcing the metaphor of the structure upon which it is. The bay lights reflected connectivity and mobility as a bridge, this illuminated path across a harsh divide that unites us. This is the place that from any place in San Francisco, you can look up at it. The name of this piece is Love Above, and it's really about love. It's about knowing that anytime that you're looking at it, there are probably 5,000-10,000 people also looking at it in any given moment. And that there's this active exchange that goes into it. It's actually gathering all of the light and energy around it and bringing some of it back to you and distributing it kind of equally across the city in different ways. So I'm super enamored with the concept and the idea. These are very rough sketches. We're about to get serious on this project. And hopefully I'll be presenting to the Sutro Tower Inc. Board relatively soon, and we can try and check that box. And I am gearing myself up with all the psychic energy I can muster to go back into this community with the proper energy to get them to believe that it's going to be okay. That this is, we're not going to make it anything that creates danger or even any lumens on the ground that they can see or notice. And that we can make sure that we can control aspects about it so they don't have to hate it. They can just love it and watch their property values soar. With that, I'm really going to come back and shut up for a second and let you guys go back to monitoring this. Just thank you guys for your attention, assuming there's still a few folks on this call. All I'm seeing is me, which is nerve-wracking. Maybe I can go back to a different view. Yeah, that's a gallery view. People, show yourself if you don't mind. If you're around. You don't have to. I know you're all having different lives in different places, but blur your background. Say hello. Hi.
And Ben, if you go to gallery view on your thing, you can be able to see everybody.
I got everybody. I've got.
Okay, awesome.
First half and the second half. Hi, folks. Nice to see some of you. I'm happy to field questions or let everyone go home early and enjoy recess. Whatever the teachers want to do. We're not hearing you if you're speaking.
I'm muted. Now I'm not. Now can you hear me, Ben?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was great. And the stories are great, which I think is important given what you expressed about your concern about being a storyteller. But we typically do questions right now. And I think Margot, like her class is actually here. So they may have some questions because, as Amy said at the beginning, like there is a focus on lighting in the interior design program. And this is, your lecture was part of this Dongia Foundation grant that we received. Now I feel when I say the name, I'm thinking of you telling your story about Audi, like, but we don't have a Dongia logo on the top.
It's foundation. Foundations are fine. They're giving away money. You like that? They're not asking.
So it looks like we have a question came through in the chat. How long will it take to finish the Sutro Tower piece?
Well, that's the beauty of these things, is you just never know. And in fact, the truth is, when you're on these projects, they are exercises in faith and belief, because they are often less likely to happen than happen through most of the life of the project. And yet people keep working on them and you keep giving yourself to them, and people have to keep behaving generously. And there's some magic calculus that happens at some point when things go from impossible to the possible. Sutro Tower is 18 months from now. That's a scurry in a civic space. We will, I'm working with an interesting group now in San Francisco, who sort of, again, I often think of these projects as having sort of this charm bracelet of amazing people who show up at the right moment, who are exactly the right person or entity to help you cross a possible divide. And there's a group called Gizmo that was founded in '96 by a guy named Mark Sabatino, who make large-scale kinetic artworks for guys like Ned Kahn, all these amazing pieces at sort of a civic scale. And we got connected and had a half-hour conversation. By the end of it, he had the damn thing halfway designed and figured out how he was going to be hoisting it up there. And so he's going to move into the process now of creating some visualizations and some renderings. And there'll be a little bit of process there, but I think we're going to get pretty close pretty quick on that. And then we're going to move into the realm of weight and structural engineering. And I've got a good relationship with the structural engineer of Sutro Tower, a guy named Ron Hamburger, who's a local celebrity from a structural engineering perspective. I feel like we got a shot. Well, we could get shot down pretty quickly. one angry judge sitting around in his underwear with nothing to do can file the lawsuit that stops you. And so, it's a little nerve-wracking, and it's this art of giving yourself fully to this thing and yet detaching from the outcome. And I don't quite know how it works, but it's worthy of trying. And so we're going to try it. And I believe this project, as I've shared it with a few folks like Mark, there's something magical and appropriate about it right now. I think from the time that we're in, I think it feels like a awesome expression for San Francisco. And I'm fully confident that if we get this piece up, which we will call to be temporary but designed to be permanent, and hope that people fight to keep it up rather than fight to take it down. But I think it has incredible power to become something you can't quite keep your eyes off, because Sutro Tower is just there's no more equitably paced, visible piece of public art available to you. It'll be sort of like it'll be the thing they show when they show San Francisco. It'll be like our wide-armed Jesus over Rio. It will, I believe, it'll be kind of perplexing. The Bay Bridge is 1.8 miles. Love Above is really 50 feet. 1.8 miles versus 50 feet. I mean, just wrap your brain around the difference in scale. And the closest you can ever get to the Love Above disco ball would be if you were at the base of it, just outside the fortification of Sutro Tower. There's a reservoir up there you can kind of walk around. It's still 900 feet away from you. I mean, it's like, imagine a school bus parked 3 football fields away. So it's an interesting, strange, gigantic little piece, and it's kind of hard to tell how it's going to read. But I still think it's worth doing. I think it could be magical. I think it could be uplifting, and just sort of change the energy of the city in a really nice way. So I hope it takes 18 days. I hope we get it done exactly on July 4th, before sunset, and on 2023, and we all celebrate together. But who knows?
That would be fantastic. I think related to that question and your answer, Oliver asked, how do you muster, I love this question, how do you muster the confidence, which I first read as how do you muster the courage, but it's confidence, to create works that you think the entire city will see every day?
This is a great question. Sort of the how dare you, right? And the truth is, like with the Bay Lights, vision, conversation with the bridge officials, conversation with an insurance agent. I was literally sitting down at my keyboard to say, okay, I need help. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I need an artist to work on this. And was about to type in monumental LED bridge, I don't know what, because there was nothing like that at the time. And my phone buzzed, and there was someone had texted me an image of themselves backlit with this lighted medallion behind them. And I sort of said, okay, where are you and what is that? And I'm at the San Jose Museum of Art. This is the Leo Villarreal show. I typed in Leo Villarreal. Within one click, I was at his website. The hair's up on my back and my neck, like, oh my God, his work is beautiful. He's done some work at the National Gallery. It's 200 feet, not 1.8 miles, but he can clearly deal with bureaucracies. And I texted my friend back, this is a guy I think I want to talk to about a project. And I know him, do you want an introduction? And I just said yes. And within moments, I was talking to him. I never spoke to another artist. There was no international, panel. There was no design criteria. There was no submittal of ideas and resubmittal of ideas. There was a conversation, and an inspired conversation, and a group of people coming together to make a very specific vision happen and working passionately towards one thing. Is that fair? I don't know. I mean, no one else was going to do it, that's for sure. But our projects go through trial by ordeal. We think about them so much, and we have to make sure, because they can't live unless they really find that sweet spot of existence. They have to be smart, they have to be generous, they have to be beautiful. If Amy, at some point distribute the 10 guiding principles of Illuminate to this group, or we can go through them. we really do bring another form of almost intuitive rigor into the process. And if there's flaws in the project, you know, they get outed. I mean, you know, and you know, projects like we did, the Monumental Reckoning project was a complex social project. Really challenging and interesting storytelling associated with that project. I encourage folks to go to monumentalreckoning.org and just spend 3.5 minutes with the full screen and the volume up on the video, and you'll get a sense of what that project is. But I don't really have a complete answer other than I do it humbly. I do it with a sense of service. I do it with a sense of expectation that things don't have to be, you know, but they could be. And if people want to help make them happen, then let's get work.
I think what's so interesting, Ben, is that I see like a lot of empathy in the work, that it's not even what you're calling the disco ball, the Sutro Tower project, that there's a kind of finding an essential kind of character of the thing that you're working on, the Bay Bridge, the Sutro Tower, that the intervention is obviously visible like from everywhere, both of those projects, but still not, at least it doesn't seem to me like it's the work of an ego, you know? I don't know whether that's like offends you or not. I hope it doesn't, but like with like seeing the Bay Bridge lights, it's almost as like, of course, this should be here.
Yeah, you know, I go by homespun rules. One of my homespun rules is the law of inverse, folks. That's my way of saying, if you want to understand how to influence or think about the future, just turn the other direction and take a look at the past. You know, if you want to understand how to change the world around you, just go the other direction and look within. And I think all of us have to wrestle with the notion of ego. I certainly do, you know, and check in a lot, because you can't really do this if you don't have some sense of ego. You have to be somewhat reliant on charisma and the belief that the words will come out when they need to come out in the right way, in the right order, which, you know, I know that sounds easy, but fuck, it takes faith. And but at the same time, you know, these pieces really do need to be expressions of, I think what I'm able to do, if there's anything about it, is to sort of somehow unfocus a bit and then tap into the collective consciousness where it's not my idea, it's an idea that exists. The beauty of Illuminate's work, if you really look at it, is everything we do that is most resonant feels like it should have already been there.
That's my sense too. It feels like an expression of collectivity, right? Or of the collective or the community, right? Or the broader consciousness of a place in some way.
And with something like the Bay Lights, when the Bay Lights went live, and it's a magnificent piece, but there's a transcendent energy in it. And I believe that energy is, because I know the story of it and have been with it, it is the love, it is the generosity, it is the community that invested itself into it that shines out. That's the energy that's coming back out. And that's why it's so important that it's not the Audi device. I didn't know it at the time, but it's clear now. And you can even feel the difference. Those 4 letters change everything. You know, although I thought it's a big fucking ad on the bridge versus who and why and for me and wow, and I need to grab the hand of somebody next to me. You know, just that moving into that sense of awe that opens us up in such a beautiful way. And I'll say this also, you know, from the realm of art and stuff, I love all art, and, you know, I'm not a harsh critic of anything. I'm sort of open-minded to all of it. But, you know, I get a little bit perturbed by the stuff that makes you sit there and stroke your chin forever, and you have to read that the artist's mother was a hairdresser, that's why there's curlers in the thing, and okay, I get it, kind of interesting. I like Illuminate's work to just come and grab you by the heart and lift you up, you know, just there's an immediacy to it for the most part that I really appreciate. And that's just the medium of light, you know, which I, again, can talk about. I don't think it's a good thing. I think that there's an industrial complex that's destroying the world. I think there's good light and bad light in the world. I almost stopped doing what I was doing. In fact, was ready to hang it up thinking, I don't want to add any more fucking light to the world. People were lighting tennis shoes, we're lighting the skins of cars, we're lighting buildings, we're lighting everything we can put on. We're calling it safety, we're calling it improvements, we're calling it eco, this, that, and the other thing. It's bullshit. It's an industry designed to make money, and it's not, doesn't care about anything but itself, and we don't have an evolutionary resistance to it. But I realized if I stopped doing it, it wouldn't make a difference. So I'm sort of trying to help myself understand, and maybe others understand, the difference between the light that gives and the light that takes. The light that's there to fill you with love versus the light that's there to bleach your soul. And so, so it's interesting to stay in the hunt, even in a medium that I think is deceptively, or it's most of the intentions are not good. Frankly, they're self-serving and money making. There you go, lighting designer people.
Preach.
I was thinking today on my bike ride that if you could make the city go dark, and then all the light in the city would have to audition for your approval, wouldn't it be interesting to see what we approved if we forced light to audition for us? Oh, you want to make your building blue? Okay, let's talk about it. Let's think that through for a second. Oh, you're going to put these gigantic bright lights in this parking lot? Okay, well, let's think that through for a second. Sorry, you guys. I was just dreaming about auditioning light.
Can you take another question?
I'm happy to take. Look, guys, I'm here in Baja. I'm chill.
Okay.
Just take as much time as you want, or or leave, whatever you want.
So Elena asked, did you ever consider having your installations communicate with each other in some way across the city?
Yes and no. One of the very interesting discussions we had when the Bay Lights were in the process of being created was, and the word was leaking out, particularly kind of the tech communities and all this notion that technology is some kind of inherent savior rather than just a tool that needs to be carefully applied. But people felt like, well, this is exciting. You can do this. You could have it show the collective moods through the Twitter stream. And if it was people were happy, it would be red. And if they were sad, it would be blue, or people could do this. Or you should turn it over to other artists so that people could, every other third Friday, have someone else do it. Or if enough of us did something on our phones, then we could connect it. It felt like people thought there was a birthright that they should be able to play this thing that, looked like a screen potentially. And the artist was, Leo was ahead of me on this. But I had to become kind of the guy who would break the knees and just know people, like, no, we're cutting that decision off. Leo's thought was, it's too big for it to be turned over to sort of graffiti. It's just too big and important. And it shouldn't behave like a screen. It should behave like a piece of art, And so I would tell people no, and I would be accused of being exclusive. You're so exclusive. You're unfair. You guys are being unfair. You're selfish. And but when the Bay Lights went live, there was this interesting phenomenon, which is it was free from the distraction of interaction. You didn't have to do a damn thing. You didn't have to know what you were supposed to do. You didn't have to whip out your phone and break your spell and attention from the beauty above you to the travesty in your hand, and somehow engage in some kind of smarty pants way. It just was like, I also learned this. I've been reading about night skies, that in a perfectly clear number 9 night sky, there are 25,000 stars that are visible to the naked eye, which coincidentally is the same number of lights as the side of the Bay Bridge. So it almost, as we've erased the sky from the urban environment, replaces the awe of the night sky. So I think there could be times when artworks might speak to each other, and we see more and more, if a pro sports team wins something, that the city will turn, 49er red or warrior blue, and or all the other times when there's a sense of unity through light, and those are going to be happening independent of us anyway. But I'm very, I think just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And so I would be really mindful of really asking myself, as I do every single day with every single project, what's the why? What would be the why of pieces communicating with each other? What's the value or the magic of it, rather than just the coolness of it?
Great. Peter Anderson of our faculty asked, can you tell us more about the process of planning for installation, not just the vision and the permissions and funding, but is there a process of mock-ups, trial and error, test, collaboration with electricians, engineers, circus aerialists, and all who get everything put in place?
Yeah, there's always, arriving at elegance is an arduous journey every time. And really, nobody wants to see the ballerina's feet. They just want to see the pirouette and be in awe. But there's grindingly hard work and mind-numbing risk that goes into these projects that have never been done before. And you're really, the way to innovate is not to innovate. The way to innovate is to solve an audacious problem and just problem solve your way to the finish line. So it's a little unpredictable what it will be. For instance, the Grace Light installation of Grace Cathedral. Artist Georges Isiadis, who, we talk about ideas all the time. Hot air balloon with a big swing, like that. That's a great idea, George. No, not going to happen. Whatever, do whatever you want to do. Not an Illuminate project. But he talked about this idea of this cone of light, site specifically in Grace Cathedral, coming down in coordination with the labyrinth. And it was an intriguing vision for multiple reasons. It hadn't really been done. There's some little art that's kind of like it. But to also go from to the bureaucracy of a transit agency to the bureaucracy of the Episcopalian Church, which is a whole other code to crack. And so we worked with them with an idea that was unclear if it would work. We got the gift of a $100,000 30K lumen projector. That we got another gift of $20,000 from someone who's kindly supported us, even though they were aware of the risk, to have riggers, professional riggers, hoist the thing up, this couch-sized projector, into the upper eaves of the church, of the cathedral rather, and not knowing if it was even going to really work. And released a little bit of haze, which we had to really be careful we're not damaging anything in the Grace Cathedral. And when we finally shone the light through it, it was stunning, stunningly beautiful, big slabs of movement, and yet it wasn't quite there. And we had speakers on the ground, but we were getting people into a darkened space. There were cables everywhere. Like, you can't have all these tripping hazards. And eventually, almost as a joke, well, someone said, put them in the rafters. It's like, yeah, put them up in the rafters. And something magical happened when we put them in the rafters. Suddenly, the voice of God was connected to the light of God. And your brain just suddenly leapt into this other space. So almost designed by need or by accident. And even then, the artist had to stop everything for 3 months and completely relearn his craft in a different form of technology that didn't force him to go through the interface of a video person to get the effect he wanted. He had to get the control. And that was an amazing process to witness, the grit and rigor that he went to that process. And then our Gabriel Gold, who did the original score, is very familiar with resonant spaces, but ultimately we rolled the grand piano into the middle of the light, into the labyrinth, and he recorded most of the score while he was in the light, in the space. And, could we have predicted that path? No way. And along the way, we found a way that we thought it would be more. We originally thought you could just walk around Grace Light. I should bring an image of it up. Let me see if I can just go back to it for you guys. Hold on. Am I sharing screen? No, not yet.
No, not yet.
Here, we'll just pull it up. Still talking about it. You guys see that?
Yes.
So originally thought you could just walk around it, but then we found out in our couple of years of making this thing, as it was in the works, that there's a powerful experience to be had when you lay beneath it and look up into it. And we worked with UCSF and ophthalmology departments to make sure that we were being safe with people. We found a way that it wasn't really dangerous, but we found a way to be extra safe, to create this masked out ring of light where we have headrests that let you lay beneath this space and look up into this transcendent godlight that people are sobbing, including me, having conversations with past relatives and understanding life in a different way, the union between life and death inside this space. And all of that was more of a journey than a smartly managed project. It was a true act of collective exploration and inspiration. So no, our projects are they're kind of like snowflakes, and each one is radically different and requires a different set of problem-solving skills and entities that we work with. And there are some common themes, but I can only see them in the rearview mirror over time.
Are there any other questions from our audience. There's no more questions in the chat. There was a how can we help offer in the chat for Margarita, I think talking about Sutro. So like, what can your friends on the call do?
But you can keep the secret for now. Everyone can keep the secret for now.
Okay.
Do that because I need to figure out my moment to bring it out into the world in a way that makes sense. Not overly afraid of people talking about it, but I just need to respect those handful of neighbors up there who feel rightfully aggrieved by the history of the tower. Illuminate's a funny little place. We are a 2.5 person organization that swings mightily. I don't even understand how we accomplish what we accomplish. But I will say this, come out to the Golden Gate Bandshell. We'll be having, starting March, we'll be having concerts on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, a bunch of Saturdays. Come out, enjoy the music. I'll be there a bunch of those times. Come say hi to me, and let's just collaborate on ideas and visions. And we'll find a way to align passion and talent with opportunity. We will. I mean, it's hard to do, but some projects are really hard. Baylights, in Sutro Tower, it's going to be a little tough because we can't get your help up there. We need the pros up in those spaces. But there are other projects we're working on, and one of the things I'm trying to figure out now is creating a transformation in Union Square. I could give a rat's ass about corporate Union Square. Take care of yourselves, you big bunch of corporate interests. But the truth is, San Francisco's hurting so bad right now that I feel like I understand that we need a vital Union Square. We need a Union Square that we would want to go to, and so I think there's a possibility, through a little bit of light, but mostly through the enlightenment of the agencies who have this morass of permissions around it that keep the system in stasis, to inspire them to create the Union Square that we would want to have, which is a place full of, food, booze, where it's not about how much you can extract from the people who come, but how much value can you provide to the visitor in the space. So I'm looking forward to the possibility of somehow encouraging movement around Union Square that also tickles some of the other issues San Francisco has to deal with. How do we create a safe space? How do we create a place that people want to be in and linger in and stay in? But so just stay in touch. If you have any specifics, I'm ben@illuminate.org. Happy to check in, hear ideas, or if you have some specific thing you want to do, let me know.
Well, Ben, this was really wonderful. Thanks for sharing your work. Really inspiring, beautiful, moving. I would like to extend an invitation when you're back in San Francisco. We'd love to have you come by the campus, and maybe we can work something out where you could, join Amy and Margot and have a conversation with some students or come for reviews. So we'll be in touch about that. Enjoy your time now in Baja.
Thank you.
The surf, I'm guessing you're surfing maybe a bit too?
I'm too old and beat up to surf.
Okay.
I like waves. My bike, taking a few runs. That's about it. But no, it's nice to be here, and I'd love to see you folks again. Come out to the Bandshell. Come out to the Bandshell. It's a magical space, and it's really cool to see what's going to be happening in there. It's fun to watch, to be part of a transformation of that place that's been quiet for a century, now alive. Very, very cool.
We'll communicate that out to our full student body. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. That was fantastic. Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, ciao.
Thank you.